So why do you keep on losing in fantasy football every season? More than likely, it's because you don't know what players to avoid and you don't know which players to pick. For today, I'm going to do my best to flip the narrative, give you my favorite picks in every round to the first 7 rounds, so that maybe you have a better idea of who to target based on ADP, based on their situation, based on who will have the best outcome in fantasy football in 2025. So for round number 1, my favorite overall pick in round 1 is going at the current draft spot of number 10, Nico Collins. So why do I like Nico at this spot? Well, number 1, if you are drafting in the middle or towards the end of the first round, then it's a pretty easy smash pick as far as I'm concerned. You're getting, again, a gentleman who could realistically finish as a top 2, top 3 wide receiver in fantasy football and potentially be a top 2, top 3 scorer in fantasy football behind the quarterbacks, of course. Still has CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is going to have a bounce back season this year. If we take out, again, even the injury week, the week when he returned back from his injury, and then if we took out the last couple of games of the season, which I know is kind of unfair, but you could kind of see by the end of the year that the Texans offense was kind of breaking down. Diggs was out, Tank Dell was out, and he was just the sole target earner, so he just wasn't performing at the same level, and neither was that Texans offense holistically as well. What I can say, if we took those games out, Nico Collins would have been on pace for PPR to be a top 5 wide receiver last season. Obviously, he's being drafted pretty dang close to that this year at wide receiver number 7. The situation for Nico's going to be better as far as when he had Stephon Diggs, when he had Tank Dell, he was elevated to a level that was pretty unstoppable. The guy's a true number 1 target earner. He's tall, he's fast, he can run routes. I would put him right there with Justin Jefferson. I know it's kind of a bold take, but it's the absolute truth. He is going to have Christian Kirk this season. He's going to have Jaden Higgins. He's going to have more weapons on that team. Nick Chubb was added, so the run game should be a little better. Hopefully the offensive line bounces back. It can't really be much worse, even if it's just league average. We're going to see what Nico Collins was doing at the beginning of the season last year prior to his injury over a larger sample size. If he does finish as the number 2 or number 3 wide receiver and you're taking him as the number 7, man, oh man, are you getting value on your pick. That is a guy that you are going to smash with in the late first round. It is not out of the realm of reality for him to finish right there with Jamar Chase as the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football. So in round 2, this might be kind of an easy out, and if it is, I'm sorry, but it's still my favorite pick in the second round. It is going to have to go to Christian McCaffrey. I'm not saying he's gonna absolutely be the number 1 running back in fantasy football. I'm not gonna go that far. Let's just slow our brakes. Does he have that potential? Sure. For me, you're getting a guy who has number 1 upside at the running back position at the number 7 running back cost. It is absolutely going to be a smash spot for him. They did not get rid of Jordan Mason for nothing. I'm not saying Jordan Mason is bad. I'm saying that if Christian McCaffrey was not healthy, then they're not moving off of Jordan Mason. No way, no how. He is better than Isaac Guerrero. It's not a question in my mind that he is. So that is why they moved off Jordan Mason, because he wanted to get paid. They believe CMC is healthy. CMC's been saying he's healthy. There's no injury news. He should be on target to play at a significantly higher level this year. And if he's 80 to 90% of what he was in 2023, you have a guy who's going to finish as a top 3 running back in fantasy football, going as the number 7 running back, going in the middle of the second round. You're still having Kyle Shanahan running this offense. You're still having Brock Purdy, who just got paid. Ayuk's still there. Jennings is still there. Kittle's still there. You still have the other target earners around him, so they can't completely stack the box on Christian McCaffrey. You still have the key components of that offensive line for the 49ers, so he is truly in a spot where he could be a top 3 running back in fantasy football. You're not drafting him at his ceiling like you were last year as the number 1 overall pick. He's not even going in the first round. He is going in the second round, in the middle of the second round. If you're drafting at 6, you could get Nico Collins. You could get Christian McCaffrey. You now have a top 3 wide receiver potential and top 3 running back potential. I know we're saying potential, but if they don't finish as top 10 guys, I'd be shocked. Top 5 guys is pretty realistic. So if you can have 2 almost locked top 5, absolutely locked top 10 guys as long as they stay healthy, you already are set up to win your fantasy football league. So for my favorite pick in round 3, it is going to be none other than Breece Hall, who's going to pick number 34. You are in a position where you are getting someone who was the number 2 running back drafted last season. Again, we're getting the Christian McCaffrey version again, but in the 3rd round. It is essentially on this team, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and Justin Fields. No. Is he going to get as many dump down passes like he had in the past? No, that is not necessarily realistic with Justin Fields. He still might get some scheme passes, but there's not going to be quite as much. I do think as a running back talent, though, Breece Hall still has it. He still has a lot of that explosiveness. We did see it last year. I don't think he was particularly happy last year with the situation with Aaron Rodgers, regardless of him never coming out and saying that. I also don't think that he was being utilized for that team the right way like he had been the previous season. I do believe that Breece Hall is going to have a bounce back year. He's going to be underdrafted. There is a world that we fall in where he ends up being closer to, I don't know, maybe number 6, number 7 for running backs. And for him currently, he is going as running back 13. So you're not even taking him as a true RB1. So if you, again, follow what I'm saying so far. If you draft Nico, if you draft CMC, and you draft Breece Hall, you've now knocked out 2 guys who are going to be solid, locked in running back ones, top 10 guys. You've now locked in a top 5, top 10 wide receiver. You're really setting yourself up to build a championship football team. So going into round 4, who is my favorite pick? Man, it was really close. I like Chuba Hubbard. He's going at the very, very, very end of the 4th round. But what I am going to do and who I am going to pick is pick number 43 overall, which is Rashee Rice. Last season, had the man stayed on pace, had he done what he did through the first couple of games, and they said at the end of his rookie season, he would have ended up being a top 10 wide receiver in fantasy football. Top 10. He plays for the Chiefs. Y'all are on Patrick Mahomes nuts, and I do mean nuts. Everybody loves Patrick Mahomes. Great. He is on the Chiefs with Andy Reid. It is realistically going to be him and Xavier Worthy. Those are the 1A, 1B options. And there's Travis Kelce. When Rashee Rice was out there, and yes, I know Xavier Worthy was his first few games, but it was all Rashee Rice. He is taking over that Travis Kelce, middle of the field, scheme, touches, crossing route guy. Xavier Worthy, I think, might get relegated back a little bit to more of the burner, down the field, stretcher kind of guy. If that is what happens, if Rashee Rice even returns at 80% of his ability, and what he had done the last handful of games of rookie season and the playoffs, and what he did the first few games of 2024, you were setting yourself up for a smash pick. Why? Because, again, he's going at the end of the 4th round. He is also going as wide receiver 21, man. He is almost going as a fringe wide receiver 3. If he can be at 80%, he realistically could be a wide receiver 1. Maybe he's only number 11 or 12, but you're getting this guy in the 4th round. You're drafting him as a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3, who has wide receiver 1 legit, not only potential, he was on pace to do it already. So again, if you're following these drafts, if you draft just like this, I might draft like this in my own draft. If I can find a way to finagle it, if I can get Nico Collins, Christian McCaffrey, Breece Hall, Rashee Rice, I have literally now set up with 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs that all have the potential to be top 10 at their position next season based off their situation and their talent. Smash pick. So going into round 5 at pick number 54, it's going to be a tight end. It is going to be Sam Laporta. You're getting him as the tight end number 5. And 2 years ago, he's tight end number 1. Okay, why would you draft him? Why would you have faith? Last year, he kind of fell off a little bit. Okay, what I'm going to tell you, at the end of the season, the man came on. I do not think he was healthy the beginning of the season, the middle of the season. I do not think Sam Laporta was himself. I don't think he was playing at his full capacity. I think as the season went along and he started to recover from whatever weird leg injury that wasn't 100% disclosed, but they did mention it here and there, he started to come on more and more. Sam Laporta is still on the Detroit Lions offense. It is a top 10 offense. Top 10 offense. You have to try and draft people on top 10 offenses when you're in between players. So if I have to take a tight end, I want to try and find a guy who has talent 1, 2 is on a top 10 offense. I'm getting a guy who 2 years ago was the number 1 tight end in fantasy football. This year I can take him as the tight end number 5. If I'm sticking within that thought process, he is a smash pick. Yes, Ben Johnson is gone, but are they going to really drop that far? No, they're not. There's too much talent on this team. Sam Laporta is set up to get closer to, maybe not the same level he was in 2023. I don't think he's going to be the number 1 tight end. But do I think that he could finish above Kittle? Could he be the number 3 tight end? Yes, he absolutely could. Could he average an insane amount of fantasy points per game, per week for a tight end? Yes, he realistically could. Again, the same actual thought process is what's occurring round through round. We're taking a guy who previously was way up here, For him, he's not dropped it quite as far, but you're taking someone who was way up here, he's kind of going right here versus down here, and you can still smash the spot. All right, so for round number 6, who would I take? Now this one's a little bit higher, so I have to apologize if you're drafting earlier in the rounds. You could always, draft these guys that are going later earlier, but it's kind of hard to draft someone later. The person's going to go earlier. But it's going to be Chris Godwin, who is going as pick number 64 overall. Last year, really simple. Chris Godwin, in his healthy games, again, which wasn't a full sample size, wasn't a full season, he would have been a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy football if he stayed on that pace. Even if he fell off the pace a little bit, still a top 5 guy all day, every day. Yes, he's coming off an injury, a little scary, a little suspicious, makes you a little worried, but again, he is playing for Tampa Bay. He's going to be in more than likely a top 10 offense. You still have Baker Mayfield. You still have Chris Evans. Still have Bucky Irving. Yes, the addition of Emeka Egbuka is kind of like a little, little worrisome. They have Jalen McMillan, a little worrisome. But for a guy who last year was outperforming Mike Evans, who could be the number 1 wide receiver on his team, he realistically could be the number 1 wide receiver on his team. He might not be the number 2. It might really be a 1A, 1B with him and Mike Evans. If I can get that guy, who people are way lower on this season, again, than they really probably should be because of him coming off an injury, I think the talent is there. He has the work ethic. He's going to realistically bounce back. Yes, he's more of a flex point at this point in time going in round 6. I am going to be set up to have a guy who, again, has wide receiver 1 potential, even coming off of the injury, maybe wide receiver 2, worst case scenario, and I am drafting him as a wide receiver 3. All right, so going into round number 7, who is my favorite pick? On this one, I honestly could not decide, which I know is kind of a cop-out, so I guess maybe I have 2 favorite picks. It is between Tony Pollard and Calvin Ridley, and I know that for whatever reason, it just seems like people are just like pooping. Every time I talk about Tony Pollard, people are just pooping on him, and I don't know why there's just so much poop on Tony Pollard. The man is a 1,000-yard running back. That's just what we're going to get. I like that stability. I like that I can predict that he's a good, maybe not great running back, and the fact that I can put him as a flex, know what weeks I want to put him in because he has weaker matchups, and smash with Tony Pollard. The addition of Cam Ward as his quarterback is going to severely elevate this team's overall offensive performance. There's going to be more scoring opportunities. He's going to score more fantasy points. I think I'm realistically going to get 15 to 17 points a week from him. And I may get obviously some weeks it's 12 points, but other weeks it's a smash of 20, 22 points that I'm going to get on big weeks from him because he's playing crappier teams. Is what it is. It's ironic because obviously you have Calvin Ridley, who's the wide receiver for the Titans. Again, he is older. I'm not going to debate that about Calvin Ridley. But you have Cam Ward, a dramatic upgrade over what Will Levis was last year. It's not that far-fetched to think that we're going to have Calvin Ridley dramatically elevate. Once D-Hop got off this team, Calvin Ridley was kind of sprinting. He was sprinting to the end of the season. The only problem is Calvin Ridley couldn't throw the ball to himself. He had to rely on Will Levis. Not going to be the case this year. I'm not saying Cam Ward is going to be a top 10 real-life fantasy football quarterback. But if he's 15 to 20, oh my goodness, Calvin Ridley is going to have the same opportunity to catch more catchable balls because it will be actually thrown to him by someone who can throw the ball. No offense to Will Levis. Also, just more chances to score the ball. These two guys are going to be on a severely elevated offense. It's going to get significantly better. So if I can shoot my shot in the 7th round, these guys are going to be flex players realistically, especially for Tony Pollard, where I can really kind of look at matchups because I feel like run defenses are a little bit easier to predict week over week. There's a realistic scenario for both of these guys to be RB2, wide receiver 2. And it's not outside the realm of possibility for either one of them to be a high number 2 at their respective position. You can pretty much draft everybody in my little scheme of a perfect world of who I would draft. And again, if given the opportunity, with no situational changes, no injuries, nothing crazy going on, that is how I would draft my team. So for me, those are my favorite picks, my smash picks, my must drafts from rounds 1 through 7. Hopefully this video is helpful. Hopefully it helps you maybe get a little bit farther in your fantasy football playoffs. Maybe it helps you make the playoffs. But more than anything, hopefully if you at least try and focus on players you don't want to take from some of the other videos, you focus on players that I'm telling you that are my favorites that you probably should take. Maybe just take 1 or 2 of them. You'll win your fantasy football championship this year. I'm trying to get better about throwing it in there somewhere. But if you guys enjoy the video, please like, subscribe, comment. I know it's a big deal for everybody out there. I would greatly appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you guys again. No, hopefully you guys will see me again real soon. Until then, guys, hope you have a blessed day.